everyone. Kristin, Connelly here. I am California-based right now, but I'm actually an East Coaster. I'm from Maryland. And I began my career in sports, so from the Baltimore area particularly, and worked for the Ravens while I was in college as a training camp intern, and then worked there full-time thereafter as a seasonal intern in marketing. Always knew I wanted to get into the marketing side. Kind of stumbled into sports. I had been an athlete my entire life and never really knew that was a career path that you could take. So it was quite exciting. Spent a year at the Ravens and then went up to New York and worked in advertising for about 2.5 years at J. Walter Thompson, which is such an interesting way to start a career. And I really recommend anyone who wants to get into marketing or advertising to start at an agency, because the training you get is unparalleled. It's challenging for sure, but it's unparalleled. And then after that, I really just had a yearning to get back into sports, and it was at the time. What, are you guys hearing an echo? Are you okay?
No, I'm okay. Are you hearing an echo?
Perfect. A little bit, but that's as long as you guys can all hear okay. And so it was at the time where the Jets were building a new stadium with the Giants, and was fortunate enough, we can dig more into this, fortunate enough of timing that they were looking for a new marketing manager, and started with the Jets in 2010, a few months before we opened the stadium, and had a whirlwind of having to launch all of the communications and information for season ticket holders, and launch ticket sales and do all the marketing efforts. And I was at the Jets for 7 years, kind of worked my way up to leading our marketing efforts, and also went to school at night and got my MBA at Stern, which was also crazy, but awesome. And towards the end of my tenure at the Jets, through business school, I was learning a lot about just global marketing, and I wanted to work for a company that, was thinking about the future of the fan and consumer around the world. And what better way to do that than eSports, which we can also dive more into, but just the global fans that, are eSports and gaming, it's just incredible. And so we had started to do some research at the Jets around Madden and how we were going to be getting involved on the esports side of things. And it opened up that entire world for me. And it was at the time that Blizzard Entertainment had announced a new professional esports league, the first of its kind, because it was a global city-based league. So taking what sports does and replicating it in esports, of having ownership groups and teams around the world compete together. And so that was the Overwatch League, and I joined that in 2017 to launch marketing for them, and have been doing that ever since. And then in March, I also added all of marketing for the Call of Duty League, which is our second professional esports league on the Call of Duty title, which is owned by Activision. And started that a few months ago, and then also oversee all of our marketing for Blizzard esports. So we have a few more classic titles like Warcraft and others that are classic games that also compete in esports. And that brings me here. So it's been a crazy journey. 3 years in esports is probably closer, feels like a decade almost. And I was kind of explaining at the top of the call for those that didn't hear yet, but we are gearing up for our first ever champion weekend for Call of Duty League. So it's akin to, the Super Bowl, if you will, where we're going to be crowning our final champion next weekend. And it's the first ever, since we used to compete more of a tournament format than an actual league with a season and everything. Mm-hmm. It's a very exciting time for us to be doing that.
So you spent 7 years at the Jets. Now you've been in esports for 3 years. What are the parallels and what are the biggest differences?
Yeah, for sure. So I honestly am surprised to fully see that the similarities are way more vast than the differences. There are some key differences, but when you look at the similarities, at the end of the day, we're still marketing for fans that are passionate and loyal and dedicated to what they love to do. So, previously I was marketing to fans of football, and now I'm marketing to fans of the video game of the league that they love. So that whole idea of fan avidity, and the content and the storytelling and the star players and the rivalries, and all of that side of competition that comes out and fans love to see is identical. The only key difference when it comes to that is our fan base is so much younger, particularly on the Overwatch League side. Our fans are 13 to 30, with the majority of them being teenagers and young 20-year-olds. So the type of content and where we share things is different. So how advanced they are with digital and social media, it is quite different. And then also we're speaking to a truly global fan base. So while other sports have done global things and have dipped their toes, in Asia and tried to expand leagues, our eSports was born in Asia. So our fans, this is their version of sports that they've been watching and cheering and looking at for 20 years. It's kind of just taken the rest of the world a little bit longer to get in that game. But, the way they consume is very mobile first, social, quick hits, highlights. Obviously, they want everything kind of upfront. And then the last key difference is a lot of esports is based on games that are quite complex. So again, when I look at the Overwatch League, you've never watched the game Overwatch played, it's going to be really hard for you to follow. Whereas, I am a huge football fan. I've never played football in my life, but I'm able to follow it. A lot of our fans tend to play our game, and the key two reasons people watch esports is for entertainment, which is similar, but then education. So we talk internally a lot that it's similar to golf, right? A lot of golf fans watch golf to get better at their technique and to learn, and they tend to be more of a golf player than not. And that might not be true, when I watch basketball or football. So there's some nuances like that as well.
So in terms of, it's interesting to hear you say that your fans now are younger, they consume mobile first, they want the quick hits, which is very interesting because on the traditional sports side, when I was, with the Marlins and I was with the Nets, that's what we wanted to accomplish, right? We wanted to think mobile first. We wanted to think about going beyond just getting people in seats. So in your new world, Kristin, what do you consider getting fans in the seats? Is it them watching the competition? Is it playing the competition? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. So Activision Blizzard, we took a different approach to esports than what has traditionally been done in the industry. So what was traditional, and you'll see this, for example, in League of Legends, which is one of the biggest esports, is that they're all tournament based. So there may be a big North America tournament, a big Asia tournament, and you'll have those winners, and they may play in, 1 to 3 major tournaments throughout the year. We took a different approach, again, just replicating what works so well in sports, where we created a professional league that has a defined regular season and postseason. So, for example, our leagues run, our Call of Duty League runs from January to concluding now in August, and the Overwatch League ran from February, and we're concluding in October. So we have full regular season, week in, week out matches, and prior to COVID, we were finally what we called kind of bringing it home, where we were going to be playing matches in hometown arenas and concert spaces where fans could come watch their pro players compete on stage. we got through a couple weeks of that before COVID shut that down. So we did have a similar model of getting fans to come here and come meet their players, for their local home team in their markets. However, what's interesting is, COVID didn't stop us from realizing our league because we can compete fully online. So we pulled back from that. We took about 2 weeks off and we were able to compete. And to this day, our teams are located in different areas of the world, and they're competing online. So what we look to create is most certainly this affinity towards your local hometown, your local sports team, and kind of an inspiration to the pro players, and wanting to be inspired by their level of gameplay and level up your own gameplay, but also just love the beauty of them being the best in the world at what they do. And for scale, if you look at something like Call of Duty League, which has hundreds of millions of players across the world, to be the best 100, 200 players at that, it's really incredible just, what it takes to get to that level. So we think while the local affinity and local events is important to us, we really think about how do we get people to watch. And watching for us is on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, all of the streaming platforms. We did have some linear television deals last year, such as ABC and ESPN, what you're, kind of used to in the sports days. But Twitch and YouTube and all those kind of platforms are easily on your mobile phone. Also on the computer, for sure. We still have a lot of people watching on these. But you're able to kind of take it with you wherever you go and just kind of watch, games, and they happen every single weekend.
Yeah. So one other question that I was going to ask you, just in terms of the players in eSports, right? So one of the things that I have read, and it's so eye-opening to me, is the influence that they have over their followers or their fans. So if, one of them says, I like X brand, the fans really take to what, their influence in terms of, I don't want to use the word endorsement because that's not, it's just like they're more influential, I think, with their fans than, the football players who are on the field. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what do you think the biggest difference is?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. So there's an inherent level of trust in our community, which is so cool. So I remember when we launched the Overwatch League for the first time, and we sold out Barclays Center within 12 days and had that arena packed for our first ever grand finals. And the fans obviously came in droves to that. And for them, a lot of them, it was the first time they had ever put on a jersey. They weren't traditional sports fans. They weren't used to kind of rooting, coming together as a community. And that special offering that we were bringing to them, that they were able to share a video game that they loved with a live community as opposed to just online, was really special for them, different. And so there's just inherently this level of trust and positivity, particularly on the Overwatch League side. The Call of Duty League side, the audience is slightly different. But I think that lends to just this solidarity and excitement because it's something that had never truly been supported. So interesting, we've done, a lot of research, and this isn't just true for us, it's true for the entire industry. But our fans not only trust sponsors and partners and brands that come into the space, they applaud them because these brands are bringing validity to the sport and game they love, which is so incredible. In all of the time working in professional sports, there's often a feeling that sometimes brands can detract from something, or, it just feels overly advertised or marketed, and perhaps maybe it's because I was in the New York market. New Yorkers can be a little more critical, but the esports fan is the opposite. When a partner comes in, and we have some huge partners such as Coca-Cola, T-Mobile, State Farm, a lot of partners that you see in the traditional sports space, our audience loves it because they see it and think, wow, we're that special, we're that big, we're that meaningful, that brands want to be connected to it. And then brands, of course, are saying, wow, we can't reach teenagers and young 20-somethings. And here we are, they're a fully captive audience. One other kind of interesting anecdote to add to that too, I'll never forget this as I've watched our live events. You have all of these, again, teenagers to 20-somethings to young 30-year-olds, and their eyes for the entire event are glued to the stage. They don't look away for a minute. I mean, the action is so fast that it's hard to. It's very active, and you have to actively engage with it. But I remember talking to brands about that. Of they're fully into it. And how often can you get a teenager to be paying attention to something for 2 hours and not look away? And so the power when we have brands able to come in and be authentic and speak to our audience and kind of be wrapped up into the entire experience and not just, kind of advertising on the side, which is obviously what, brands are moving away from for obvious reasons, has such a power. But I think it goes back to just the level of community that eSports has. Inherently built into it.
Yeah, no, I love it. And Andre says that whatever a pro uses, the community will buy. And I think that is one of the things that, from my perspective and an outsider looking in, is like that affinity to partners, where in traditional sports, sometimes it just feels too commercialized. It's like you're always trying to sell the fans something. So kudos and thanks for the insights in regards to, the inherent trust in the community. So, now that you're in a different, you're still in sports, working on a different outlet, I guess, or, the new wave of sports. What would be your 3 career insights, Kristin, for our audience today?
Yeah, totally. So there may be a little bit more personal as to what I find just that have helped me in my career, no matter what industry I'm in. But the first one is just around defining your culture. And so a lot of people talk about defining your brand and knowing what you stand for and kind of what you offer. I think about it a little bit bigger of define the culture that you're in and that you want to be a part of. And to me, that is the biggest difference maker on kind of your satisfaction of your job and your career. And I think sometimes people forget that, culture is not built from the top down, or, it doesn't have to be dictated to you. You can define what you want to be a part of and the environment that you work in. And so that's something I've tried, to institute in my entire career. Even things such as, I remember at the Jets, we used to have tea time weekly where we got around and just had tea and, caught up and just kind of chatted and brainstormed. And I worked with a lot of creatives on my team. And, something like that was something little, but it went a long way to define the culture. And then secondly, for me, a huge kind of insight too is to actively listen. And this was the biggest thing as I came to eSports. I came in, again, as the traditional sports person, one of the first times they'd hired outside of the gaming industry. Now we have a lot of sports and entertainment people on our team, but in 2017, we didn't. And it was really important to me that I came in and understood, I didn't know eSports. I didn't know the fan. I'm not inherently a gamer. I played video games growing up. But that's not what I identified with the closest. But I came in and felt it was important to actively listen. And not, again, we talk about listening, but actively really leaning in and understanding what people were saying to me, and letting it really just kind of digest and run with that. And I think that is proved to be a difference maker. A lot of friends and colleagues will look at me now and say, eSports inside out. You didn't know a single thing about it when you first started, and now you're an expert in the industry. But I think it goes back to because I really listened and understand what people were saying. And then my last one is is to be real. That's been my biggest differentiation in my entire career is just, of course, we talk about being you for sure, but always be real and stand up for, what you believe to be true, and who you are. And as long as you do that and you're honest with what you know and what you don't know, and you're not trying to pretend, something else, that has just been huge. And in the esports industry, you'll hear this if you ever hear any panel or conference. The number one thing that we talk about from a marketing perspective is how important authenticity is to the audience. And I would say that's the same both professionally, is just being real, being authentic. And the fan and the community and the industry will really celebrate that.
Yeah. And bonus question today, Kristin, is what is your superpower?
Gosh, that's that's such a good question. It's a hard one. I think for me, I love understanding the strategy and the big vision, but I also am able to understand the details and execution and how everything gets done. And often in careers, I find that people lean towards one side or the other, and being able to see the full picture and how people kind of come into problems and want to solve them. I'm able to see it from both sides, which I think may be really effective in everything that I do.
Yeah, that's great. And one funny thing that I want to share with the audience here is that when I was in Brooklyn, I had Kristen Connelly, who worked on my team. So when I was introduced to Kristen Connelly, you were at the Jets at that time, it was like, oh, I have two Caseys in my life now. So
yes. Well, even funnier because, we did take the Overwatch League to Barclays Center. We worked really closely together. But before that, because we were both in the New York marketing sports world, we were working with all the same media vendors. And so we found out about it because everyone for the longest time said, can you believe there's a Kristen Connelly in Brooklyn and a Kristen Connelly in New Jersey and cross paths. It was really fun to finally get to work closely together with her for our inaugural season.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Anyway, Kristin, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it because this has been awesome. So thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see everyone here next Tuesday at 12 for our upcoming lunchtime conversation. Thanks so much,
Perfect.
Kristin.
Thank you so much.